Hello and welcome to the Psyched podcast. I am Kaya Roman, and I'm so psyched today to have the most incredible guest with us, Dr. Pamela Kryskow. First of all, this woman is my absolute hero, but let me tell you about her, and I'm sure by the end of this conversation, she is going to be your hero too. Dr. Pamela Kryskow's roles include medical lead at Roots to Thrive nonprofit, medical lead at Vancouver Island University Psychedelic-Assisted Therapy Program, and board member of the Psychedelic Association of Canada. She is a medical doctor, researcher, and instructor. Prior to medicine, she was a city firefighter for 8 years. You guys, who do you know that is a doctor and a firefighter? Okay. She loves kayaking, gardening, and foraging in the forest for mushrooms. So this woman is an absolute goddess. Thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today, Pamela. And I also want to say that in addition to all these incredible things that she does, she has an amazing heart. And I was very fortunate to experience unexpectedly being guided and supported by her recently, and really got to experience your compassion and just beautiful heart, Pamela. So I'm very honored to be speaking with you today. Thanks for making the time.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. And I really have to preface before we go forward that everything I am able to do is not just me, it's teams. We have an amazing team at Roots to Thrive. I have an amazing co-chair at Vancouver Island University, Dr. Shannon Dames, and the Psychedelic Association of Canada is a team effort. So nothing I'm doing is solo. Everything is about collaboration and teams and working together. So it's not me. It's just that we've co-created some teams that really are heart-centered and really lean in to get things done in service to this planet.
Well, thank you. Thank you to you and your team for what you do. And I'd love to hear about what you do. So this is an interesting model, that you have this nonprofit, Roots to Thrive. Can you just start by explaining, how does the nonprofit model fit within what the work that you do? And how, you're working with psilocybin mushrooms, so maybe you could explain to us how you're working with the medicine and how you set it up under a nonprofit structure.
Right. Yeah. Let me give a bit of history first off. So the whole program, Roots to Thrive, was a program created by Dr. Shannon Dames, a resiliency program that was piloted for nurses who were burnt out.
Oh, for nurses. Okay.
Yeah. We started with healthcare our providers, so nurses, and the pilot went wonderfully. And it was at that point, it was a resilience program. And then Shannon and my lives collided, which was awesome. And then we went, how can we co-create this program that you have with psychedelics? And then, so we co-created a program with a bigger team of other doctors and nurses and therapists and energy workers, somatic body workers, Indigenous elders, all in and working together. And we created a psychedelic-assisted therapy program using ketamine at first because ketamine was legal, and iterated the program, kept making it better with complete feedback from the participants, from the team members, going, how can we make it better? How can we make it better? How can we make it better? So not being a static program, being a constant quality improvement program and an iterative program. And so this little team came together and worked through doing psychedelic-assisted therapy in the hospital, which was fantastic, but beautifully in this, what we our elder Geraldine Manson, this way of weaving together the two-eyed seeing approach, taking the best of Indigenous ways of knowing and this lineage of creating a ceremony and bringing it all together, and then also the best of Western medicine and weaving them and say, how can we make something better, co-create something? And so we created this ceremonial process in the group process, using Western medicine, ketamine, and then kept iterating it. And then when the psilocybin came in when we realized, like when Health Canada was starting to move, and we knew that we were going to start getting these Section 56 exemptions.
Okay.
And so we thought, well, what better of a way to do psilocybin assisted therapy for people with this end of life distress than in this beautiful group process that we had created, this group, group psychedelic journeying. And because
Sorry, can I just clarify? Were you doing the ketamine in a group setting? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all that's we are 100% a group process on this. The participants come together, they get to know each other. They meet for 4 weeks, 2 hours a week together online, and we move them through these resiliency processes, helping them, gain their foundations of wellness and health and the whole human, creating trust, creating communication, creating community, expanding windows of tolerance, so that when they come together in person on the day of the journey, they're like a small little family. And they journey together.
They feel safe together.
Exactly. And they
Oh,
integrate
beautiful.
together, and they continue the process together. And what's wonderful about it is, like, we have this slogan in our program, like, come for the psychedelics, but stay for the community. Because ultimately that's what people need, is connection and love.
So much.
And this is the whole process of our team itself too, like, come together for the community, lean in, do our own healing, nourish ourselves so that we're the best we can be in service to the participants of our program. And so, yeah, so it's all group. And
Okay.
so
So
one
did you
thing,
transition from ketamine to psilocybin?
well, we have 2 arms, we do both. And what
Oh,
we
okay.
saw from, our colleagues that had done this before, in the system, right? Like, we have a bit of challenge with that, because we really love the ceremonial process, but we also know it has to, we have to have ways of it being in the system and out of the system. Like, there has to be a spectrum of offerings. And so, what we did, knowing what John Hopkins had done and NYU and that research from those teams, one of the things we heard a lot was that the participants wish they had had more people to talk to, more community. And we were like, we can do that. That's what we do. We create community.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we took our Roots to Thrive program and made it into a specific end of life, like, palliative care program. We shortened it.
Okay.
And then we focused on end of life issues, and prepared them for psilocybin instead of ketamine. And so then they came together, these patients, that all had end of life issues, or distress or diagnoses, and we got them ready with psilocybin, and then they all came together in the same place, and they had a ceremonial journey on psilocybin, and they integrated together, and they continued to travel their process of their own healer, activating their own inner healer intelligence, all these terms that we all know so well now. And many of them are still, well, actually I think almost all of the people that have come through our program for psilocybin are in remission.
What?
I
So
know.
they were all at end of life and now they're in remission?
Yeah.
You're just blowing my mind on so many levels. I have so many questions. First of all, how large are your groups? Have you figured out kind of like a size that's the best size for these groups?
Yeah, we like 8. We find 8 is really great, and we have 2 members that facilitate each group of 8. And that could be a doctor and a nurse, or a nurse and a therapist, or 2 therapists. It just depends. We find the dynamics that work really well, and based on the dynamics of the group, we go, oh, this facilitator and this facilitator are going to work really well with these people. This group of 8 personalities are the challenges there. So we have everybody, is trauma informed, cultural sensitivity. We do training ongoing, so everybody has therapeutic backgrounds. So whether they're an MD, a nurse, or a therapist, or a spiritual care person, or energy worker, or an Indigenous elder, there's all this therapeutic skill set that is constantly being developed and improved upon.
Wow. Yeah. So this program, is it funded by Health Canada?
No, so that was actually kind of your earlier question, why the nonprofit?
Right.
So we started a bit in the system, but most of the services that are most of the program is just not funded in the system, right? So the doctor's services, mine, and are funded. So I can bill, and I can, and that part is covered. But the journey itself and the therapists are not covered. So the only way we figured we could do this right now, we have a lot of moral distress about, like, we think this should be covered. We know this needs to be covered in the system, and it's not. So the transition for us was to move it into a nonprofit.
Okay.
And what we're actually doing right now is also moving it into a charity. So it'll become a charitable organization where we can give charitable receipts for it. But we have a lot of donors and foundations that, have little bits of donations that come in to help scholarship. Because when we did the first one, we said we just have to make this happen. So we just all volunteered our time and nobody got paid. We just did it for the patients. We covered all the costs, and so the patients came into the program. And so now that we're in a number of iterations through, now we know what the cost of providing it is, and we still don't charge unless the patients can afford it. And if they can't afford it, it doesn't matter. We fundraise, we accept donations, and we did that. And that we figured like that the nonprofit is the fastest way to do that. And we didn't want, like, therapy is expensive, and we didn't want it to be a have and have not situation, because if you have the money, you can go get therapy. You can go to a beautiful retreat center, you can pay for therapists.
Right.
But none of us want to have a society that just because you don't have money, you can't have these brilliant medicines.
Right.
And so that was the way to make that happen. So we have these scholarships in the program. And
well,
yeah,
I'll definitely make
extra
sure
money.
that by the time we are done today, we let people know how they can make donations, because this is an incredible program. Are you still focused on end of life groups, or are there different groups now that are going through the program?
Yeah, we're continually putting in the applications to Health Canada for people that are also treatment resistant for other things. So we have a lot of treatment resistant depression applications in. So people that have, like, they've tried the system, they've tried the medications, they've tried therapy, and those things are not working for them, or they're not working well enough.
Yeah.
And so we make the applications in to say, this person deserves a chance to use psilocybin. We've also done a few other things that we're hoping will come to fruition. We've asked the Canadian government to exempt our program for psilocybin, so that we could. So what would happen is, if a patient came in and the medical team thought, yes, psilocybin's a good option for this, we could just do it instead of having to ask permission for every single patient, which is what we have to do right now.
That's how it
right now
works
it's a
now.
bureaucratic process, right? And it happens that way in the US as well, as where the people that are best situated to make the decision are the healthcare team and the patient. Those are the only people that should be deciding on the best therapy. And then we all have this step in Canada where we have to go to Health Canada and ask permission to people that are essentially bureaucrats and not primary care, or they're not healthcare providers, they're bureaucrats. They're good people. I don't have any complaints about them. They're doing their job, but
sure. But it's just a
people having to go to
tedious
insurers.
process.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. Like, the people that are not the experts are making the decision. And so that's what we've asked. We've asked Health Canada to say, look, we're going to exempt Roots to Thrive nonprofit, and we're going to let them, if the patient qualifies and it's safe for the patient, then they can go ahead and do it. And then that way, what we could be doing is really spending way less time on paperwork. And way more work,
more time
going, which patient needs this medicine?
Yeah.
And getting it done. And the other thing that we've done, which will be helpful for people out there that are looking at it, and like I said, we did it in the nonprofit model because we didn't want to be working with shareholders, because we didn't, getting people well cannot be a shareholder thing. Like, this is a moral obligation to our society. And so what we wanted is every dollar that was extra to go into scholarships for that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And what about, how do you decide between psilocybin and ketamine? I guess a couple questions around that. I'm assuming it's easier to get ketamine approved than the lengthy process you have to go through with psilocybin. And then I'm curious if you find like certain people are going to benefit more from ketamine than psilocybin.
Yeah, I think that's something where a lot of us, we really know the medicine we want to use with a lot of people, and we don't always have access. And in some of our patients, MDMA would be way better.
Yeah.
but their only access to MDMA right now is through clinical trials, and hopefully that'll change. We're hoping that'll change in British Columbia, where we are next year.
Mm-hmm.
And in some people, psilocybin is the best medicine, and other people, ketamine is the best medicine. And I think that as the more experience you have with people under these medicines, you get a sense of, oh, this first, then that. Oh, no, don't do. They're not even ready for a psychedelic non-ordinary state yet. We really got to build up the foundation for here, and so that's why we have people on our team that work with functional medicine, and we have spiritual care workers, and we have lots of counselors, and we have energy medicine, and maybe we need to do some somatic work first. And so we just think of the psychedelics as just another tool in our toolbox. Like, what does the person in front of us need first and foremost to take them to the next level, and then the next level, and then, oh yeah, hey, now you're ready to get to this trauma. So ketamine is going to be a really nice dip your toe in, start here, and then let's see where you get to. So we really love the part of the science and the art of it coming together. And that's where that Indigenous ways of knowing, and then our knowledge keepers really, one of our Indigenous, our elders on our program is sometimes like she'll just say, that person needs that. And we're just like, great. Like, there's this kind of Gestalt intuitive part of it too, and the science. So it's really weaving it all together. So, when we have the buffet table of all options, then I think it's going to be hard. It's not going to be like a technical checkbox, like, oh, you're on this path. It's like, oh, let's work on this and this and this, and then this, and your inner healer intelligence is coming in, and what do you feel is your next steps? And it's going to be a lot more of a patient driven process as they get back up onto their foundation. So really, I haven't really answered your question, but I think
sounds like it's a very case-by-case basis. Like, if somebody enrolls in the Roots to Thrive program, they're going to be cared for in a very holistic way through a process that sounds pretty lengthy. Like, if I were to enroll in the program, how long would I be going through the process?
Right now, our programs are set up right now as 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And then we have an alumni.
Okay.
So some people, they will have their first psychedelic session, at 4 weeks with us, with their group, and they've just hit the home run. Like, they just got they got everything they needed. They got the insights. They were able to get right to their trauma and really action it.
Yeah.
And wow, we hope that for everyone, but of course that's not reality, right?
Sure.
And then there's other people that it's bit by bit. They've got this long-standing, deep depression. They've been living it, they've been breathing it their whole lives, and it could take a bit more. And you could have somebody else that looks exactly the same. That one session is boom. But anyways, they go through the 2 hours a week with their group.
Yep.
They have the 3 psychedelic sessions within the program with lots of integration opportunity and lots of tools being offered, really reinforced. It's all about us making sure we're not taking any power at all, that the patient has all the power, the patient's inner healing intelligence, the patient is learning, or the participant, we call them patient participants, because they're fully participating in this, this is all about them doing it, not about me. Like, Pam's not the healer, the person's the healer. They're healing themselves. And so and then it's a 12-week process. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, when they graduate from the program, they automatically go into the alumni. Because everyone's different. So we have some people that have needed up to 10 sessions. And then we've had people that have really only needed 1. So it really just depends. And we'll have people that, did our program 2 years ago that will then come back into the alumni and say, you know what, I'm really ready to take it to the next level. Wow. I'm ready for it. I've really integrated. I have really actioned everything I learned. I'm using the tools. My life has changed drastically. And now I'm ready to deal with this. Right. And so I love that kind of like big tent, but what do you need? And you're going to do it in a community. And that's the other part of what's
so beautiful about what
really
you're doing.
Important. Yeah, because, nobody on this planet has a unique problem. Yet we think we
True.
do, and we hide and we stifle ourselves,
Yeah.
and we get all insulated and like, I'm the only one that has this shame.
Yeah.
I'm the only
Nobody
one
would
that,
understand me.
yeah.
I'll
And the
just hide
reality,
away in my pain.
and it's not true. And
Mm,
that's why the group process is so strong, because
yeah.
you go, oh my goodness, that person also has shame. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that person has also been sexually assaulted. Oh my God, that person also grew up in extreme poverty.
Right.
And you start to go, oh, it's not just me. And
Yeah.
then you can lean in and go, oh, okay, I'm not as bad as I thought I was, or I'm not as,
Right.
that those stories I've had in my head, oh, I don't have to carry them. And the
Yeah.
healing
And I'm not
accelerates.
alone.
Yeah, the healing actually accelerates, because our whole team used to do one-on-one or dyad work
Mm,
previously.
okay.
And I don't think, in very rare, there's some people that first need that one-on-one, but for the most part, when people are in these groups, they're already getting better
Yeah.
before they even have their first session. Like we monitor substance use through the program, and we'll have people come into the program that say, at the beginning, every night I have 6 scotches after work just to calm down.
Right.
Really, at week 3, they're going, I haven't had a drink for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Like they're kind of like, something must be working. And it's a
Mm,
community, and it's a
yeah.
resiliency.
And I'm sure the community persists. These become your long, forever family.
That's something we've definitely heard. I came into this program thinking I was broken, and I left with friends, and
Amazing.
and the nice thing too is, in the groups, the participants, they hold each other accountable. Like, they hold their feet to the fire. Like, if somebody says, oh, I don't really think this is working, somebody else will chime in and go, what are you talking about? You're so much more articulate. You're so much more happier. You have a smile on your face. You're
Right.
glowing.
They
And so that,
hold up that mirror for them.
yeah, yeah. And it's not me, the doctor, saying it. It's a
Their
colleague to them.
peers.
It's a,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so beautiful. I'm sure that everyone listening is going to be saying, how do I get to be in one of those groups? So, who is it available for? Is it just like residents of British Columbia, or you have to be a Canadian citizen, or what is,
Well,
how do
right now,
people get to participate?
yeah, right. And well, no, we've had people from across North America participate, and it's a simple referral process, application process. We have a very detailed intake to make sure that people fully understand what the program is,
Hmm.
what the commitment is,
Hmm.
and what we're going to do. So we load it quite heavily on the front to
Yeah.
make sure that people are making the right decision, because we're not a program for everyone. Like every in psychedelics, right? There's going to be different areas that are going to be a lot better for people. So we want to make sure that we're not trying to be everything to everyone,
Yeah.
but for so treatment resistant depression, anxiety, PTSD, eating disorders, substance use challenges, those are kind of the areas that most of our patients have. Grief,
Okay.
burnout. We have a lot of PTSD burnout with first responders,
Right.
and healthcare providers coming through. A lot of assault, a lot of trauma, childhood trauma stuff coming through. But what we do is do a really solid intake, so anyone can apply, and then they go through the process, and then if they can be part of the program, then that's how we go. And if not, then we offer, here's some other organizations that might be able to do what you're looking for.
Okay, amazing. I'm going to ask you to give us the website and all the right information for everyone when we wrap up, so people know how to find you. But I'm just curious. So then, if you have people coming, say, with a sexual assault background, or they're dealing with burnout, do you create cohorts of groups that are all kind of dealing with the same issue, or do you mix it up?
It depends, actually. It really depends. We have a really fantastic intake team
Hmm.
that really knows how to co-create wonderful groups that they know can travel together on that. So sometimes it's very similar. Like, sometimes it'll be all women, sometimes it'll be
Yeah.
all men, sometimes it's a mix, sometimes it's all firefighters, sometimes it's all nurses. Depends on, and
Okay.
that's why our intake is really substantial, because there may be a profession that unites you, but maybe the challenges are different.
Right.
And so and the other part of it is So maybe it's a sexual assault, and maybe then maybe it's somebody else that has PTSD for another reason, and maybe it's somebody else that has something else. But the challenges are still similar.
Yeah.
And when you start to realize, like, there's not, sometimes there is a benefit. Let's say if you're a firefighter and it's job related PTSD.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a benefit to having that, but also sometimes it's a benefit to going, you know what I experienced at my job there, other people also experience something differently, but
Right.
similar. And you can heal together. And this is often what we hear after, as people come out, like, I was a little bit annoyed when you put me in a group with blah, blah, blah. And now it really makes me understand how much
Mm.
we are a human community.
Oh,
Like, those people were so different from me, but now they're my friends. Like,
right.
it's uniting in a
Yeah.
way. It's removing this othering, like, you're not like me, you're not part of my group. And so, there's something about that too, when you heal with people that are really unlike you.
Yeah. Yeah. You realize this human connection that unites us all despite
Yeah.
our differences. So I'm curious with, your findings with really the power of working in a group. Are
Mhm.
you hopeful that this group work will become kind of a standard in how psychedelic medicine and psychedelic therapy is rolled out as this, as laws change and as this like
Yeah.
industry develops? um
Yeah, I do.
because it's not necessarily going in that direction only, or
Yeah, I
yeah.
think I think that the part of that is because, we've seen this image as these medicines have come back. And if you're and of course there's like the indigenous lineages that have been broken, and there's some that have never been broken. And so, but what we've seen in our culture, the Western culture, is we've seen the image of the John Hopkins study with the person on the couch and somebody holding their
Right.
hand,
Right.
or somebody laying there with two people on either side. And I
Right.
think sometimes people think, oh, that's just the way it is. And the
Mhm.
reality is that that's not just the way it is. And I think the group model checks so many boxes. And let me tell you what those boxes are. So number one, therapists, doctors, nurses, whatever, what doesn't matter what modality you work in this field, you don't always know if you're really good, right? Like, if you're a solo
Yeah,
practitioner,
I mean, you need the feedback, but I hope
yeah,
your patients are getting better, but yeah, I guess you never
or
really
they're you think they're better because you don't see them again, but they're not coming back because you're not any good, or
know.
or
Right.
you've caused harm and they're in the hospital, or because, like, that is never anyone's intention to cause harm. Like, number one,
Sure.
nobody does this work to cause harm. I mean, sure, there are outliers, absolutely. I'm not going to argue that there aren't, but for the vast majority of people working in this, their intentions are so good. But when you work in a group, like me as an MD working in a group, in our group, there's no hierarchy. Me as an MD, I'm not at the top, it's flat. And so I'm learning from our functional medicine expert. I'm getting
Mhm.
my skills are always elevating because of that. From our indigenous elder, I'm learning from her teachers. I'm
Right.
learning from the nurses. I'm learning. We're all learning from each other, which means our game is getting better. We are getting better. And so we're in constant learning, self-reflection, evaluating our skills and taking ourselves to the next level. So if everybody starts working in teams, they're going to be better. You're going to be
Yeah.
smarter. You're going to have more skill sets. You're
Yeah.
going to go, oh, I loved how you said that. I loved how you reframed that. I love how you witnessed that. And
Yeah.
then your skill is taken to a higher level. You also get the feedback like, hey, Pam, when you said that, that really worked. Or, or Pam, you totally messed that up. This is what we would suggest,
Yeah.
like, we can lean in as a team that trusts each other. So our skills get better. If our skills get better, we're more nourished, healthier, society's better because we are foundationally better. If we are foundationally better, our participants and patients get better service.
Hmm.
We can show up wholly, fully to help their healing journey.
Right.
So everybody benefits. The team is going to benefit, the patient's going to benefit.
Yeah.
Safety benefits. There are very unlikely to have transgressions happen in the group because we're all watching each other. We're
Mm-hmm.
going, whoa, that's looking like close to a red flag. Let's chat about that.
Yeah.
Put the arm around the shoulders. Come over here. Let's chat about this. Like, there's a lot of transference going on there. How can we help you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So much
and
more accountability and feedback in that
yeah,
situation. Yeah.
yeah. And we do know that most transgressions happen when people are in solo practice,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if something's going bad in your life, like maybe you're going through a divorce
Mm-hmm.
and you're lonely, and that's when the transgression is going to happen. So when you're in a group, in our group, if somebody's having a really big challenge in their life, we can
Yeah.
say, no problem, step away for a bit. We got this.
Hmm.
And we're here for you.
Yeah.
And then when things stabilize, come back in. So
Yeah.
it's this, and so our team is constantly in flow. Some people are taking some time, some people are coming
Mm-hmm.
back in, but the program is never broken. Whereas if it was a solo practice, you have more financial, oh, I can't stop patients even though I'm sick and my kids are sick and blah blah,
Right.
and I'm going through a divorce and I'm having bankruptcy, right? In our program, that would be held. It's not a problem. It's
Yeah.
not a problem. So
So
there's
it's the
so many
group
benefits.
practice, but it's also the group therapy. It's all
Mhm.
about the power of community in your model on both sides.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the participants get what they need. Like, we have certain people that just are rock stars at certain topics,
Yeah.
right? So they're the one that carry that piece of the teachings or the learning.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to be all things as
Yeah.
a doctor. I can be really good at what I am. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I'm the
beautiful.
happiest I've ever been doing this. And I
Oh,
feel like I'm in the place where I can constantly learn and learn and learn with my whole team.
so amazing. So, like, over the next, say, 5 years, I mean, I think it's incredible that, Health Canada is already starting to cover psilocybin, but like you said, it's still a pretty bureaucratic process, but obviously it's changing, hopefully MDMA and other medicines. Where would you like to see this heading? What would your hope be for psychedelic medicine, say, over the next 5 years?
Yeah, what I'd like us to do is be able to move beyond a million clinical trials. Like, I think MDMA for PTSD is proven. Like, it is
Yeah.
proven.
Yeah.
There should not be another MDMA trial for
Right.
PTSD unless it's
Yes.
checking something else.
Yes. Thank you,
Right? Like,
Maps. Did
yeah,
your
done.
job.
You've done it. Let's go. Like,
Yes.
come on. Like, we cannot be spending, like, the clinical trial process is so expensive. Um,
Hmm.
Psilocybin for end of life, it's proven.
Yeah.
Like, in Canada, we have federally medical access to assistance in dying. So
Right.
we're saying to the government, like, if our patients can get permission to kill themselves, clearly they should have the option of psilocybin, right?
Yes.
Like, that to me is just an easy bureaucratic brainer. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
you've got a palliative diagnosis, you have the right to have a psilocybin session, go for it, right?
Right.
And I think you can see from our results, like I said earlier, like, our patients are in remission. That means they're not costing the system. Like,
That's
I mean, even if you don't care
crazy.
about people and you only care about money, it's a
Yeah.
money save.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I would hope. I would hope that
Yeah.
we push back and say it's unethical to do any more of the clinical trials. It's been
Hmm.
proven here.
Yeah.
And
Let's move
put the
forward
effort
with the
in,
medicine.
yeah, put the effort into where we don't have the evidence yet.
Hmm.
And what I
Okay.
really think we're going to see is we're going to, and this is for the policymakers, don't make the hoop so high for those of us in the system or regulated professionals, that, like right now in Canada, like, you can go downtown Vancouver and buy mushrooms,
Okay.
right? But I have to apply to Health Canada to give that therapy to my patient. Like,
Uh-huh.
the bar for me, a regulated, insured professional who can be held accountable for her actions, is way higher than the underground.
Right.
Yeah, and there's a million great underground therapists. So
Right.
let's open up these doors to not have this line
Yeah.
there going, like, whether it's decrim or harm reduction until the studies are done.
Hmm.
But that's what I hope we see. I hope we see the studies happen and moving. Okay,
Yeah.
the evidence is in favor of this, so we're gonna
Yes.
let it happen. And I mean, people are getting access anyways.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
the
so
only thing we're
true.
doing is stopping people that don't have means or money from getting
Hmm.
access here.
Right.
And And
And
for
then and stopping them from having something like what you've created, like doing it within the right
Mhm,
setting, with the right team, with the right support, with the, the right group.
mhm,
Because if you just go get some mushrooms and go have an experience on your own, or who knows in what setting,
yeah.
you're not necessarily going to get the healing. So
Yeah,
yeah, I
absolutely.
I
And
totally
the one
agree.
thing on that too that I think is really important, like I said earlier, is as a for me as a doctor, I am not going to do anything that's going to harm my patient. I do not want to hurt my patients. Like that is not my intention.
Of course.
And I think that's what the policymakers have to keep in mind. Like why are
Hmm.
we passionate about this? Because we have a medicine that works.
Right.
We don't get that very often in medicine. We don't very often
Yes.
get an intervention that
Yeah.
like for our program, we have a 92% success rate in 12 weeks for PTSD.
Uh, Wait, say
Yeah,
that again. 92%
92%
in
success rate for PTSD. People that come
in
into our
si-
program
in 6
in
weeks, in
12 weeks.
12 weeks,
Yeah,
90 home.
I know. In
And
12 weeks.
this is an untreatable condition with
Well, yeah,
that
because you
that
look at the
that traditional medicine says we have nothing to help you.
well,
Take
and
all these
yeah.
antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications and sleeping meds and
Yeah. Well, and what we're treating is the people,
92%. This is
we're treating the
amazing. And is
people
this
that,
with psilocybin specifically, or
no,
sometimes
this
ketamine,
one's actually
sometimes
with ketamine. So,
amazing.
but, and the thing is, some of the traditional medicines in the Western system totally work for some people.
Right.
And they're better, right? They're not the ones we're seeing. What we're seeing is the ones that
The
didn't
people
get better.
the people that it
So,
hasn't worked for. That's
so
amazing.
these are the people that are treatment resistant in PTSD, and in 12 weeks, 92% of them are better.
Wow, Pam, I am just blown away by everything that you've shared, and I'm sure our listeners will be too. Can you please tell us, how can we find out more? How can we support your nonprofit, and how can people get involved? I'm sure everyone who's listening is saying, sign me up, and where do I make a donation?
Yeah, rootstothrive.com. We have a donation
Okay,
button there, which is also in partnership with MAPS Canada, which will give a
oh,
charitable
beautiful.
status or a charitable receipt if you're in Canada. If you're in the US, unfortunately, we don't have that status. But rootstothrive.com.
Okay.
And I think what people can do is, lean in, support organizations that are getting therapy. I think that's number one. There's a lot of great places in all across North America that are doing therapy, and really push, I think, push politically, say, look, at we
Mm,
need these medicines, we need a middle way until all the clinical trials are done.
yeah,
um, and yeah, I think we're going to get there a lot faster than we think. So leaning in, getting the training, standards of care, best practices, high integrity stuff. Yeah, and we're gonna, you know what? The reality is we're gonna screw it up, and it's okay. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna pivot. We're gonna make mistakes. And one thing I say is we're better together. Like we need
mm,
people really leaning in, and instead of saying, "Hey, you're doing it wrong," how about, "Am I doing it right? Let's do it right." Like let's work together, because we don't need. I think everybody kind of knows where the challenges are in this space.
hmm,
What we don't need people pointing them out. We know it. What
right.
we need is people saying, and here's a solution.
Here's the
Here's how we
solution.
can do it better. And that's
Hmm.
really why our team has moved so fast, is we're always going, oh, that didn't work. What would work better?
Right.
What would work better? What would, like, we're leaning into solutions constantly,
Hmm.
and not, and I love that we love the saying, like, okay, yeah, that was a mess up. Now what? Now what? Instead of like really, blaming and shaming. We don't want to do that. We want to heal. We want to move forward. So that's
Yeah.
what people really can do, is look for the solutions and support, if you can financially support things that are working.
Yeah.
And if you can't, even just, hey, we love what you're doing, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, can people follow Roots to Thrive on social media? Can they follow along with your work?
Yeah, a little
Or
bit. We put all our efforts into therapy.
you're more in
If
real
somebody
life
really wants to do
focused.
our social media, sure, come on in.
Got it. Okay. Well, amazing. I just am so grateful to you and your team for all the people that you're helping, for creating this model for the rest of us to see actual solutions.
Mm,
And I look forward to following along with your work, supporting your work. And just thank you so much, Pam, for taking the time to speak with me
no,
today.
absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Take care.
You too.